It's so unfair. I mean, everything is stacked against you if you're a healthcare patient.
As one of the state's most unknown and controversial laws could be on the verge of a major change, we meet perhaps the most important man behind the charge. Plus, plastic pollution.
We literally have to take matters into our own hands.
We have real problems we are facing, and the Montana State Legislature has gotten in the way of dealing with them.
Two Billings residents join forces in a legal fight against the state. And
I'm Alina Howder. The city of Billings is trying to make it safer for kids to walk or bike to school. We'll tell you more coming up.
The MTN 530 News starts right now.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. Our Malpractice in Montana series concludes tonight with a look at the future of the state's medical malpractice cap. Our Casey Conlon introduces us to perhaps the most important man in that fight.
Of the 30 states that have caps on medical malpractice damages, Montana's cap is the lowest at $250,000. The law was passed in 1995 and hasn't ever been seriously challenged. One way to do it is to get a case before the Supreme Court. That's likely on deck. But another is to bring a legislative fight, and that's where Nick Rowley comes in.
I grew up poor, I grew up homeless. I vowed that if I ever have the means, the ability to do anything about this law, I'm going to fight to change it.
From those humble beginnings, Nick Rowley has become one of the most successful trial lawyers in the country. His settlements and verdicts total over $2 billion, many of them in medical malpractice cases, because of one simple reason.
Everything is stacked against you if you're a healthcare patient.
Rowley's first med-mal case came as a California law student. Mother of 3 died of cervical cancer after a misdiagnosis. He went into mediation and asked for $3.5 million and was laughed at.
He said, there's a limit. The most you can get is $250,000. Don't you know about MICRA?
MICRA, or the Medical Injury Compensation Reform Act, was California's version of the cap, passed in 1975, and is the blueprint for what exists in Montana today. Rowley hadn't heard of it then, but he knows more about it than just about anyone now. It's why he spent millions of his own money trying to overturn MICRA over the past few years. He didn't, but he did get the cap raised significantly.
It's a step in the right direction.
Now he has his eyes set on his new home. Rowley and his family have lived in Montana for the last 6 years, and he's ready to go to battle again.
The trial lawyers in California weren't all lined up the way that they are in Montana to go fight for the rights of the people. If there's a place in the country where we're going to win a victory, it's going to be Montana.
Montana's $250,000 cap is the lowest in the country. Compared to the Treasure State's neighbors, North and South Dakota's caps are $500,000. Idaho's is $430,000, but increases every year based on inflation. And Wyoming, they don't have a cap. In fact, they have a constitutional provision prohibiting caps. That's what Montana's trial lawyers are hoping for.
I would like to live long enough to see this cap be declared unconstitutional and return the right of people to have a jury trial in which jurors can render a fair verdict.
Earlier in our series, we met TJ Reifer. He was the jury foreman last September for Zahara versus Advanced Neurology Specialists, where the jury awarded Joey Zahara a $6 million verdict. But that jury didn't know their verdict could very likely be capped at only $250,000.
It does feel like we wasted our time almost, if that's the decision that they come to.
The judge still has not made a decision on the cap. Whichever way he rules, it'll be appealed to the Supreme Court. Several have been at this point before. Most recently, Jamie Espy, a Miles City woman who won $2 million in non-economic damages. A Yellowstone County judge capped it, and she appealed, but it took her 6 years to get there, and she couldn't keep going.
I may not have been able to reach my ultimate goal, but I have a voice that needs to be used for the benefit of my fellow Montanans.
And thank you.
Espy settled her case last September, meaning the Supreme Court has still never ruled on the cap's constitutionality. Joey Zahara says he's determined to take the fight to the end.
Oh, great shot.
If he does, his lawyer believes that they'll change the industry forever.
I always believed in my heart that if we got the result
and a jury found in favor, that justice won't take that away from him.
At the very least, Montana's medical malpractice cap is long overdue for examination. It doesn't provide for any rise in inflation. $250,000 in 1995 is worth half that today. And its original intended purpose, luring good healthcare providers to Montana, isn't happening. The state is suffering from a huge shortage in providers. For now, the chips seem to be in a Great Falls judge's hands. We'll see where they fall after that. Casey Conlon for MTN News.
The house where 4 University of Idaho students were killed was demolished today. The home on King Road in Moscow, Idaho, is where Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were murdered back in November of 2022. The previous owner gifted that home to the University of Idaho. UI initially planned to demolish it before this school year. However, delays ensued as families expressed their wishes to wait until the case reached a resolution. The court has released the home, and neither the prosecution nor the defense has opposed its demolition. The suspected killer, Brian Koberger, is facing the death penalty. A trial date has not yet been set.
Good Thursday evening, a beautiful live view from our Stockman Bank camera. Temperatures today were above average. We overachieved in the Magic City, had a low of 24 and a high of 41. Both temperatures 6 degrees warmer than average as we get closer and closer to the end of the year. But we have very little cloud cover now and starting to cool down. Currently 38 degrees, but that breeze is making the wind chill feel like it's 28 outside. Let you know if we have any chance for snow over the next 7 days, including to early next year coming up.
The state of Montana is being sued over banning local regulation of single-use plastics. And tonight, for the first time, we hear from 2 Billings plaintiffs involved in that case and what motivated them to join forces with a Bozeman-based environmental law firm who's leading that charge. As our Kelsey Boggs explains, the suit challenges House Bill 407, arguing it violates constitutional rights to a clean and healthful environment.
Cups, to-go containers, and utensils. These are things you probably wouldn't think twice about throwing away. But one local group wants you to reconsider what you're putting in the trash and allow local governments to regulate what businesses are allowed to hand out.
Plastics are directly harming people's health.
That simple thought is why Katie Harrison joined in a lawsuit against the state in late November.
Unfortunately, it is at the point where we literally have to take matters into our own hands to stop this.
Challenging House Bill 407, a law passed in 2021 that bans citizens and local governments from regulating single-use plastics.
This bill is simply saying that certain prohibitions on the products we all use should be done on a statewide basis so that consumers and businesses have one standard that covers the entire state.
Harrison, who runs the local nonprofit Sustain Billings, is joined in the suit by outgoing city councilman Danny Chiricki.
That's in direct contradiction to the Montana State Constitution, where it very explicitly says we have the right to home rule.
Back in September of 2022, we brought you a story with Harrison on her efforts to make Montana more green.
It's disgusting that I'm picking this up.
This January, MTN followed up with Harrison on her efforts to eliminate single-use plastics in the Magic City.
407 is considered the ban on bans.
We have real problems we are facing, and the Montana State Legislature has gotten in the way of dealing with them.
In 2017, a survey of 72 sites in the Gallatin River watershed was conducted to determine the presence of microplastics. 57% of sites were found to be contaminated. In 2019, 50 fishing access sites across the state were surveyed. 33 of those sites were contaminated. And last year, 12 locations in Flathead Lake were surveyed. All 12 locations were found to be contaminated.
That will be consumed by fish.
The complaint asked Lewis and Clark County District Court to strike down HB 407, giving the state 42 days to respond.
150 people are not going to be experts on everything. They need to listen to the experts.
They're finding microplastics everywhere. And this is a real issue. So if you care about Montana, you should care about this issue.
In Billings, Kelsey Boggs, MTN News.